very warm welcome and good evening to all the attendees. We at Team Legal Expatiate welcome you all to our inaugural session. With the catchline, Explore the Legal Hood, Legal Expatiate is a group of 5 people, including law students and young lawyers, which aim to organize various webinars by inviting legal luminaries and to conduct wide competitions such as research article competition, online moot court competition, online debate competitions, etc. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole world is at standstill, and so is our legal education. To fulfill the vacuum, we present you all Legal Expatiate. We are delighted to have with us our today's guest and speaker for the evening, Advocate Chaitanya Dharurkar sir, who is going to enlighten us on the topic Origin and Development of PIL in India. I take a privilege to introduce our today's guest to all our attendees. Advocate Chaitanya Dharurkar sir has graduated from Manikchand Pahade Law College in the year of 2004. Sir has completed his post-graduation in the subject of labor laws and was ranked 5th in the order of merit. He completed his post-graduation from the Department of PG Studies in Law, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. Sir has completed his diploma in cyber law from the Asian School of Cyber Laws, Pune, in the year of 2010. He also completed his diploma in media laws with the first rank merit from the Nalsar University, Hyderabad, in the year of 2012. Sir has worked as assistant government pleader and additional public prosecutor at the Bombay High Court bench at Aurangabad. He has a vast experience of handling civil, criminal, service, administrative cases before the Honorable High Court. Sir has been appointed as amicus curiae in various criminal appeals and petitions in the High Court. Sir has also worked as visiting faculty at various institutions. He has been a part and parcel of Department of Postgraduate Studies in Law, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, from the year 2006 to 2008. He has also worked with Manikchand Pahade Law College, Aurangabad, from the year 2012 to 2013 for the post-graduation course. And Sir recently is also visiting faculty at V.N. Patil College of Law, Aurangabad, since 2009. Sir also guides to JMFC aspirants, and many of his students have joined judiciary. During his college days, Sir has participated and won various education competitions. Many of his research papers have been published. Being a fine orator of all times, Sir has delivered various lectures across Marathwada region. His articles are published in various newspapers too. With an aim of creating legal awareness, Sir runs his YouTube channel named Bookmark. He also participates in discussions and interviews on the All India Radio. We feel proud to have Advocate Chaitanya Dharurkar sir with us for our inaugural session. Before I request Sir to take charge of the session, there are a few instructions for the attendees. This webinar would be followed by a question-answer round. Those who want to ask any question should text in the chat box, which would be taken up after Sir's presentation. Now, I request Advocate Chaitanya Dharurkar sir to take over the charge. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. At the outset, I express my gratitude to Team Legal Expatiate for having invited me to deliver the first very lecture at the webinar that is being arranged under their auspices. It is always a matter of pride and profound gratitude to be associated with students from the Manikchand Pahade Law College. I, being a product of the very same college, this reminds me of those golden days when I used to be, where today the organizers of Team Legal Expatiate are. Of course, those were days when we did not have the privilege to access Indian Qanun, and those were times when we had to actually go and see the citations in the hard copy at the shelves of law library in our college. But times have changed now. Times have changed drastically. We are experiencing the unprecedented and untold hardship that no one ever imagined. But I feel this is a great initiative that you guys have taken. And again, I would request it has become so friendly with all of us, with the public at large, that without having known the nuances as to how a PIL works, what is the form of a PIL, people try to bring in everything under the sun, and every problem they feel that the solution, like a magic wand or like an antidote, would be filing a public interest litigation. But is public interest litigation so simple? Can we have the first slide that we are to share today? I have a small 4-slide presentation for all of you.
Yes, sir. Just give me a minute.
Yes. So this is what I always keep in mind when I conduct classes, when I engage sessions, and when I am interacting with law students. Now, this thought or quotation is attributed to various people. I mean, some of the sites say that it is said by Albert Einstein, somebody says that it is said by somebody else. But the thought has a deeper meaning. And what it says, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it. So whenever it comes to explaining something to a gathering of law students like the present one, I'm always reminded of this thought. So with this brief background, I now today am to indulge into this task of trying to explain you in simple words what public interest litigation is all about. Our movies are also a reflection of our society. In the Jolly LLB First, starring Arshad Varsi, we also find a reference to a public interest litigation. Friends, Mahatma Gandhi had said once that the India of my dreams is that in which the weakest of the weak will have the same chance like the strongest of the strong. I'll tell you, PIL is nothing but a personification, a manifestation of this very thought by the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, giving an equal chance to the weakest of the weak like the strongest of the strong. What do I mean by saying this? I mean, you guys should not react the way the teacher to Ranchor Das Chanchad reacts in Three Idiots. Bhai, कहना क्या चाहते हो, right? So I'll make it more simple because as I said at the outset, I'm reminded of that thought by Albert Einstein or whomsoever it is. To make it again more simple, we'll have to first understand what are the provisions as enunciated under the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, we all know, is a magnificent document. It took some 2 years, 11 months, and 17 days to draft the whole of the Constitution. To pause here for a moment, I would request all the law students to make it a point that go and read the lecture talk delivered by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar on 25th of November 1949, a day prior to the Constitution of India was adopted. That lecture will give you a glimpse of the Indian Constitution that nothing else in the world can give you. Every word has to be transcribed with great care into our hearts what Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has said in that talk. So with that background, if we are to look at the Constitution of India, on the day on which it was adopted, it consisted 395 articles, 22 chapters, and now it has some 12 schedules. The Constitution of India consists of Part 3 and Part 4, which are significant for today's topic. Part 3 is the fundamental rights chapter. It goes from Article 12 to Article 35. Part 4 is the directive principles chapter. Now, pardon me if I am being too simplistic, but as I said, the students or the participants are somebody who are also pursuing their law studies, and there are few who have passed their law graduation. So, with this background, now let us move to Article 32 and 226. These are two very significant articles in the Constitution of India. What is 32? 32 speaks of the Supreme Court's prerogative to issue writs. And Article 226 speaks of the prerogative of the High Courts to issue writs. Writs are commands that the courts issue for protection of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights as enunciated in Part 3 of the Constitution of India from Article 12 onwards. Fundamental rights consists of Article 14, right to equality. It consists of freedom of speech and expression, freedom of association, freedom of business, trade, occupation. It consists of right against double jeopardy. It consists of right to life, freedom of religion, freedom of rights of minorities, and so on and so forth. But these freedoms, if they are violated, then what is the remedy to that citizen? The remedy is to file a writ petition before the Supreme Court or the High Court. All right. So far, so good. The provisions, the background we have understood. How do we connect this to the topic of our today's discussion, that is public interest litigation? And to connect it, we'll have to peruse very scrupulously each and every provision of the Constitution of India from Article 1 to 395. And I tell you, if you conduct this exercise right from preamble, which goes on with the words, "We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India," and up to Article 395 with amendment, the figure has gone to some 440. You won't find a single reference to the words public interest litigation. Then we'll have to again ponder over the issue. We'll have to go to then one significant article which many of us give a miss, and that is Article 366 of the Constitution of India. Normally, if we peruse any draft of any legislation, any law, we get to see that section 2 or section 3 for that matter are the definition clauses. And in the definition clauses, we are given in detail, explained in detail, the various terms that we come across in the whole enactment. That act might be a 10 section enactment or a 100 section enactment. With that background, if we are to examine the provisions of the Constitution of India, at this very odd place, you will find Article 366, which is the definition clause. So now let us see the definition clause. If we are to see and peruse the definition clause, we don't find a reference to PIL. Now again, we'll have to think, then what is the answer? Because I distinctly recollect when we were at law college, our teacher made us a query, and this was none other than Professor Sanjay Jain, who is currently associated with the ILS Law College. How India gained independence? And being a novice to the law college, though we were not very acquainted with the legal provisions, with that background, very innocently we went on with our answers. Sir, Bhagat Singh was hanged to death. Lokmanya Tilak said, "Swarajya, ye mera janma siddha adhikar hai aur main wo leke rahunga." And then Mahatma Gandhi said, "Chale jao." And so India gained independence. And our teacher very aptly, very precisely said to us that all of what you have responded is true, but that's not the answer of a lawyer. A lawyer's answer has to be that the Independence of India Act was passed in the British Parliament, and so India gained independence. That doesn't mean that we are undermining the efforts of our freedom fighters, of the father of our nation. But this is how a student of law, a lawyer, has to be precise with his answers. So with this precision, if we are to examine where does the term PIL come from? We also do not find an answer in Article 366 of the Constitution. That way, then if we are to apply the analogy of science, we all know the law of gravity was invented by Newton. Archimedes invented how fluid mechanics works, how fluids interact, and the whole story of Eureka, Eureka. Newton having sat under the apple tree and one apple falls down on his head, and then he starts wondering that why did the apple fall down? Why didn't it go up? So whole of that, if we are to apply here, I'll put a question to you that does that mean that until Newton thought of gravity law, it did not exist? It had existed, but somebody thought of it, somebody discovered it. Archimedes discovered it, right? So with that background, public interest litigation, though in these very words, we do not find a reference of this term in the entire Constitution of India, it exists. And it exists. The seeds of public interest litigation, they exist in Article 32 and Article 226 of the Constitution of India. 32 consists of some wonderful words. And if you, all of you as law students are to conduct an exercise, I'll tell you, what are the words of 32? That the right to approach Supreme Court under this article is guaranteed. Mark my words, and with whatever little authority I have gained studying law for few years, there is only one section that I have come across in law which sounds similar to this Article 32. 32 क्या है? अब तो हम सबको समझ आया कि whenever there is violation of fundamental right, we can approach Supreme Court. But see the wordings of 32. What it says, the right to approach Supreme Court under this article is guaranteed. Now here, what I wish to imbibe on all of your minds, that rarely do we find such a situation when law interacts with us, the commoners, the citizens, as if law is somebody like our elder brother, as if law is someone like our grandparents, law is someone from our family like a father. देखिए कभी भी आपको ऐसा नहीं हुआ होगा कि all the provisions of law are so technical, but then here there's an exception. And what Article 32 says, right to approach Supreme Court under this article is guaranteed. The way a salesman or somebody who commands great pride about his product says to you कि साहब ये गाड़ी, ये कार, ये प्रिंटर आप लेके जाओ, मेरे तरफ से पूरी गारंटी है. Rarely law becomes so humane the way it becomes under Article 32. And that is why I believe that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, when he was asked that which is the heart and soul of the Constitution, it is Article 32, that he very quickly responded to. 226 is also a similar article. And what I was trying to explain you, that there is one another occasion, just I'll refer to that and we'll move ahead with our discussion. There is Order 6, Rule 1 to 4 under the Civil Procedure Code. There you will find when Civil Procedure Code explains us how are we to draft our pleadings. The CPC Order 6, Rule 1 to 4, the exact rule, you may just refer it in the CPC. It goes that pleadings shall contain facts and facts only. Now here again, this is the second occasion which I told you while narrating this example, where I believe that law has become very humane. हम इंसान जैसे एक दूसरे से बात करते हैं, वैसे लॉ में बात नहीं होती है भैया. लॉ के प्रोविजंस काफी टेक्निकल होते हैं. But in CPC, I believe that this is a place where law becomes very human, and it says that pleadings shall contain facts and facts only. उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं होगा pleadings में. So 226 and 32, 226 casts powers to issue writs on the high courts. So whenever there is a violation of fundamental right, you can approach the high court. Now, why I was saying that PIL is nothing but a different manifestation of Article 32 and 226 is simply for the reason that, as I said, it was discovered by Newton. The gravity law which existed was discovered. Then we need to investigate as to whom we accredit this discovery of PIL. The answer to that is it is Justice P. N. Bhagwati and Justice Krishna Iyer, who are said to be the father of the PIL movement. Justice P. N. Bhagwati felt that law needs to become more liberal, more litigant friendly. Now, why litigant friendly? Can we just have the next slide? This will explain you as to how the Supreme Court felt that law needs to become more litigant friendly. Yes. So this is a slide that I have on my own prepared. Now, what do we get to see here? There's a batsman and there are 4 fielders behind the batsman who are there ready to catch hold and get his wicket, and there is a bowler. The first fielder, if we can, is it the wicket keeper? I don't know, but the first fielder we get to see at the background, I have named it as locus standi. The second is draft. The third is delay. Fourth is court fees. And the bowler is alternate remedy. Now there's a correction over here. It has to be alternative remedy, not alternate remedy. Now with this background, I'll try to explain you one by one these roadblocks, and then that will give you the whole significance of PIL. Can we minimize the slide, please? Yes. So the first fielder who was ready to take a catch of the batsman was, now I may make some mistake or I may change the order of the roadblocks, but the first person who might take a catch of the batsman was locus standi. अब ये locus standi क्या होता है? When I engage classes on the first year law and when it comes to explaining legal maxims, I feel like giving them some names of medicines. हमें तो दवाइयों के नाम पता होते नहीं है, azithromycin, Sinarest. I, being a first generation lawyer, felt whenever I heard of these maxims like some alien medicine name. But there is a rule called the rule of locus standi. What is locus standi? अब हम सब कोरोना की माहौल में जी रहे हैं. अगर किसी को बदकिस्मती से कोई लक्षण दिखाई देता है, and if someone feels that, oh, if this acquaintance of mine has actually suffered COVID and he needs to undergo the test, then now I am trying to explain you what is locus standi. Then even if I may have all the affection towards that friend or acquaintance of mine whom I suspect, and even he suspects that has he suffered corona, I cannot go to the doctor and say that you may test me. I am a close acquaintance of him, right? And same is applicable about any other ailment that any human being suffers. It is the person who is suffering the ailment has to go to the doctor, has to furnish himself to the doctor for the medical checkup, and after the doctor examines the patient personally, it is only then that the doctor may give a final finding about the ailment being suffered. This rule, how do I borrow this analogy of doctor's example here? It simply means that if there is a dispute of partition between my neighbor and his brother, then it is either of them that has to go and file a case for partition before the court. I cannot go because the court will ask me, आपकी standing क्या है? What is the locus standi you have? So first is locus standi. This is the roadblock. If we are to again recollect the first slide of the cricket players, can we just have a glimpse of that slide? the slide where we have seen these cricket players having gathered together? Yes. So first is locus standi. So बैट्समैन को अगर बैटिंग करनी है तो इन सब मुश्किलों का उसे सामना करना पड़ेगा. फर्स्ट इज लोकस स्टैंडी. What is PIL? PIL is nothing but all of these fielders will go away the way in 2020. Though I have lost the touch with cricket, but I recollect that there is a part called batting power play where all the fielders they move aside. So to make it more simple, public interest litigation is like batting power play, where all of these fielders they move away, and it is a complete freedom to the batsman that he can play freely. So can we minimize the slide now so that I'll be in a position to explain you the rest of the roadblocks. So first was locus standi. आपको कोई ये नहीं पूछेगा if suppose I go and visit Jaipur and at some tourist destination if I find that something is not proper. I am a resident of Aurangabad, Maharashtra, but if I write a letter to the Rajasthan High Court, the Rajasthan High Court, without going into my residence or my domicile, that is Maharashtra, may relax the rule of locus standi and consider my petition. Second is the rule of drafting. What are the rules of drafting? I refer to that. Order 6, Rule 1 onwards. Pleadings. What pleadings is? If you are to approach Bombay High Court, then there is chapter 17 of the Bombay High Court appellate side rules, in tune with which you have to file your writ petition, the case before the High Court. So your draft has to meet the standards prescribed by law. Otherwise, your case will not be admitted. There has to be a margin, there has to be proper typing, the font has to be legible, the documents are to be supplied which are to be legible. If at all so required, the translation will also have to be supplied at the High Court. All of these requirements are to be met. So rules of pleadings are the second roadblock which a normal litigant, not that in the case of PIL, has to meet. So the second filter was draft. The third is limitation or delay. At times, we get to see clients approaching to the lawyer after 5, 6, and 10 years, inordinate delay. And then to make it more simple, I just tell to the client कि तुम्ही दुखणं अंगावर काढलेलं आहे. And now it is very difficult because as the saying goes, God helps those who help themselves. Same is with law. Law helps those who are diligent about their rights. So limitation is another aspect which may come in the way of a normal litigant, that he has to satisfy the test of limitation. He has to satisfy the reasons for the delay caused, Section 5 of the Limitation Act. Then the fourth roadblock, if we are to connect with that picture of cricketers. Now, can we have the next slide? Before I explain the fourth roadblock, the next slide after the cricketers. Yes. So this is the way at times, if you are unmindful of the dangers or these roadblocks, then you may come across such a situation that you will be opening up your case and saying my case is, and the court comes with this something to puncture your balloon. Now this is just a meme, no offense to anybody, no disrespect, just to make the whole concept more clear. I have prepared it that the court might say to you that you have an alternative remedy. Here again, the word that is printed is alternate, that is wrong. The correct word is alternative. So what is alternative remedy? अब क्लाइंट लोगों को तो आपको उन्हीं की भाषा में समझाना पड़ेगा. And I distinctly recollect my senior, to make law as simple as possible, used to tell us कि शाम का समय है जैसे अभी है और आप नए नए सिरे से वकील बने हो और आपके ऑफिस में आपने अगरबत्ती जलाई है और कोई क्लाइंट आपके पास आता है और वो बोलता है साहेब ही केस करायची, साहेब इंजेक्शन पाहिजे इंजेक्शन. Now clients at times teach you the concepts of law. When the client, who's a rustic villager from some corner of some village from Maharashtra, he says injunction, but he wants to refer to injunction, that is manai hukum. Now then, if we are to explain it to that client in that very simple language कि बाबा आपकी केस यहाँ डायरेक्टली हाई कोर्ट में फाइल नहीं हो सकती क्योंकि आपको ऑल्टरनेटिव रेमेडी है. This is so difficult. The way the teacher reacts with Ranchod Das Chanchad, similarly, a person, suppose a responsible person from that very rustic villager's family who has joined him and has come to your chamber to seek your legal advice will say, कहना क्या चाहते हैं वकील साहब, right? So then to make it simple, I usually tell this to my clients कि बाबा औषध घ्यायचं झालं तर मेडिकलच्या दुकानात जावे लागते. आपको अगर दवाई लेनी है तो यू हैव टू विजिट अ मेडिकल शॉप. दवाई लेने के लिए आप किसी ग्रोसरी स्टोर में नहीं जा सकते, किसी किराना स्टोर में नहीं जा सकते, राइट? सो दिस इज अल्टरनेटिव रेमेडी. Until I joined practice, I did not know and was completely ignorant of the fact that in Aurangabad alone, there are 23 different courts. So now you may wonder as to how many avenues are there when it comes to filing a case. So you have to be very precise with the proper place and the forum where you need to file the case. So alternative remedy is the third roadblock which a normal litigant will have to meet. So then comes the fifth roadblock. Can we have the next slide? And the fifth roadblock is that of court fees. Yes. So though the fifth roadblock, I have not named it here, but I have used the Mario game picture just to highlight how these roadblocks are, to make it more simple, right? So the fifth roadblock, you may consider the very small fish-like creature, a bird sitting down in this slide, to be the fifth roadblock, and that is the court fees. You'll have to pay the court fees. Whenever you approach court, if it is a suit, then you have to comply the requirements of the court fees in the trial court. If it is a writ petition at high court, the court fees is nominal, it is 250 rupees, right? So this is the fifth roadblock. Now can we get the slide minimized? Yes. So अब इतना सारा तो आपने बता दिया सर, PIL के बारे में बोलो. भाई मेरे, इसका जवाब यही है कि जब ये सारे रोड ब्लॉक्स आपके रास्ते से हटा दिए जाते हैं and courts become more liberal, more friendly, more congenial, more kind, more gentle to your cause, without asking you as to why is there delay, without stopping you about the, because at times those who are active at high court, I keep on saying to the junior colleagues at the bar that at times it is quite comfortable to demonstrate and to make a certain point to the honorable presiding judge, but at times it is very difficult to convince the clerks or the office superintendents who scrutinize your files. So first, before your case is put up before the high court or any court, you have to cross these hurdles, these roadblocks, these 5 roadblocks. And now to make it simple, what is PIL? The answer is this. I had that meme, but in a hurry, I missed that to be added to that slideshow. That meme of Sanjay Dutt in Munna Bhai MBBS saying to Dr. Asthana, वो पेशेंट मरेला होगा तो भी फॉर्म भरना जरूरी है क्या? What is that? He speaks of a situation when the crisis is so high that will it still be required to meet the technical requirements of filling a form at the medical clinic or the hospital? With drawing that same analogy, I would say that ना ड्राफ्ट जरूरी होगा, आपने किस तरह ड्राफ्ट किया है, ना आपको कोर्ट फीस के लिए कोई पूछेगा इफ द कॉज इज जेन्यून। आपके प्लीडिंग्स के बारे में कोई शिकायत नहीं करेगा, आपकी लोकल स्टैंडी के बारे में कोई आपसे कुछ नहीं कहेगा। All of these roadblocks, when those are set aside, then that is public interest litigation. And as I said, the father of public interest litigation movement is Justice P.N. Bhagwati, and there is a greater contribution also from Justice Krishna Iyer. So, the first case that we can discuss here is Bandhua Mukti Morcha case. Here is a case when there were some stone quarries in Faridabad district of Haryana, and there were workers who were functioning, who were working there at those stone quarries. There was no compliance of any of the provisions of law. There is a minimum wages act applicable. There is a payment of wages act applicable for workers. There is a maternity benefit act applicable. These workers were engaged by the ठेकेदार or contractor, जिसको वहां पे वर्कर्स को उसने एंगेज किया था। उनकी कोई सहूलियत नहीं देखी जा रही थी। No concession as is applicable in law was being provided to them. And then it was based on a letter written by this organization, that is Bandhua Mukti Morcha. The word Bandhua here doesn't mean Bandhu, that is brother. Bandhua means bonded. There is a separate legislation called Bonded Labor Act. So Bandhua Mazdoor, their Mukti Morcha organization, for their emancipation, an organization was functioning, and that organization wrote a letter. A committee was appointed by Justice P.N. Bhagwati. The committee recorded the statements of the workers who were working there, in how pitiful condition they were working, and their statements were placed before court. There was an objection taken by the state in this case, Bandhua Mukti Morcha case, that there is no cross-examination of the workers. There is a statement, and directly that is considered by the court without they being put in the dock for their cross-examination. And the Supreme Court said that this is a public interest litigation, and the rules of law, rules of evidence act, you cannot apply them strictly to the public interest litigation. And then the Supreme Court gave certain directions for the well-being and welfare of these workers. The second case is, we need to appreciate the contribution of MC Mehta. If you read the biographical details of MC Mehta, he was a young lawyer who had entered the law profession and accidentally had been to Taj Mahal, and while he was taking a walk at the Taj along with his family, he could see and he observed certain black spots on the Taj Mahal. Looking at those black spots, he wondered why they are there. And then when he gathered information, he came to realize that it was because of the brick factories that are surrounding Taj Mahal at Agra. The whole smoke that is generated from these factories, that the Taj is getting dark, it is getting blackened. He moved the court. A petition was filed, and the court gave certain directions for shifting of the brick factories from that place surrounding Taj Mahal. This is the approach of the court. Next case is Gaurav Jain, wherein this young lawyer came across an article in India Today. It was somewhere around 1989 or somewhere then, in India Today on 11th of July. And then that article was referring to the plight of the sex workers and the very pitiful condition in which they live, how their children are ignored by the society, what all health problems they suffer. The Supreme Court then took cognizance of the case based on an article in India Today. And then the Supreme Court appointed a committee and gave certain directions for the health and well-being of the sex workers working. This is Gaurav Jain case. There is Sachidanand Pandey case. Sachidanand Pandey case you all can read for wonderful literary discussion on environment. It is Justice O. Chinnappa Reddy's judgment, one of the finest judge whose judgments, as a student of law, if you are fond of literature, you need to read them. apart from Justice Krishna Iyer, Justice O. Chinnappa Reddy. Now, these are few examples of PIL. But then, as I said, there are some issues that the Supreme Court has come across. It is particularly in state of Uttaranchal versus Balwant Singh Chaufal in 2009 or somewhere, that the Supreme Court Justice Dalveer Bhandari has delivered a judgment. The judgment you may read, it is a detailed judgment discussing the public interest litigation law from Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Australia, and United States of America, various countries of the world. The judgment is the landmark judgment on public interest litigation for this reason, that the Supreme Court has given certain guidelines, and as per those guidelines, the high courts were directed to frame certain rules for public interest litigations to be filed. Earlier, what used to happen is that a writ petition was filed if the court felt that this involves a greater cause for the benefit of the society, though one individual has come. The court used to treat that writ petition, which was filed under the heading of writ petition, as public interest litigation. With Balwant Singh Chaufal case, now what has happened, due to the directions of the Supreme Court, that on the High Court of Bombay website, we will find these rules for filing of public interest litigation. There are some 4 to 5 different affidavits apart from the verification of your client that you will have to file before the court. The affidavits are roughly such that first affidavit, that I have not filed the case with any ulterior motive. कोई किसी से दुश्मनी निकालने के लिए ये केस नहीं किया है मैंने. It involves a genuine public interest issue. Second is that if the court directs me to pay certain costs or deposit certain amount to show my bona fides, I am ready to deposit that. Third is that if at all the court finds that few of the statements that I have made in the petition are false and are fraudulent, then I am liable for punishment. And fifth is that I have filed this case by gathering documents under the Right to Information Act, and there is nothing illegal while collecting those documents. So these are roughly affidavits that you are now required to file along with your writ petition, which now is registered as public interest litigation with the judgment of Balwant Singh Chaufal. It is state of Uttaranchal versus Balwant Singh Chaufal. Now in this Balwant Singh Chaufal case, just to make a passing reference to the facts, the appointment of the Advocate General of that state was challenged, and the Supreme Court felt that a constitutional post's appointment, how is it that a public interest litigation is being moved for that purpose? And then the Supreme Court felt that there is a great abuse of the public interest litigation. Now, since being into law practice for almost 15 years, I would completely agree with the observations of the Supreme Court. Why? Because I had a case where a person who had lost the election for the Gram Panchayat, who could not become the Sarpanch. See how people utilize a court to settle their private disputes, to settle their scores. A person who could not become the Sarpanch for the Gram Panchayat, lost in the election. Somebody who was his competing candidate, commanded the post of Sarpanch, came to me and said, साहब वो एक जिला परिषद की स्कूल है अपने गांव में, तो वो स्कूल का एक अलग से क्लासरूम उन्होंने बनाए ग्राम पंचायत ने, और वो क्लासरूम का जिला परिषद से अभी उन्होंने बिल निकालने वाले हैं. So the gram panchayat is provided with separate funds for construction of school. A separate classroom was constructed, and he said कि साहब वो बिल नहीं निकलना चाहिए. And then I asked क्यों नहीं निकलना चाहिए? The client, now this was during that period when this Balwant Singh Chaufal and the High Court rules had not come into play, that I am narrating you this incident. तो जवाब में ये आया कि साहब वो कैसा है ना, जो स्कूल बना है ना, वो एकदम नदी के छोर पे बना है. और होता क्या है, जब बहुत बारिश होती है ना साहब, तो नदी के पानी का बहाव इतना ज्यादा होता है कि ना इंजीनियर लोगों ने इस तरफ गौर किया, ना कोई टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट लोगों ने इस पे गौर किया कि वो पानी के बहाव से कभी कभी बाढ़ का पानी जो है स्कूल के उस क्लासरूम में भी आ सकता है. So this was what the client narrated. Now I could smell something fishy. When I moved the petition, the very first day, court asked me, and it had so happened coincidentally that during that year at Aurangabad there were torrential rains. The court in a very sarcastic way, asked me that, Mr. Darurkar, then there have been very heavy rains at Aurangabad. Has the classroom actually flooded? And I said that just to dodge the query of the court, I said that I'll have to ask the client. What I'm trying to highlight here is why the directions of Supreme Court in Balwant Singh Chaufal have come. It is because people approach at times courts to settle their private score. There was a teacher who was working in a secondary school since 1986. In 2008, a citizen from that small taluka approached me saying that, साहब, वो जो टीचर 1986 से पढ़ाते ना, उनके पास क्वालिफिकेशन नहीं है. And being new into the profession of law, I moved a petition. And then the way court showered its blessings on me, blessings I'm saying in an ironical way, but then the court was not happy with the way the petition was moved. Here I would like to tell you that in service matters, this was a service matter. I was challenging the appointment of a teacher who was ordaining and commanding that post since 1986. Court said that we'll impose cost, you either withdraw this. And I had to withdraw it. Why? Because the Supreme Court has consistently taken a view that in service matters, public interest litigations are not maintainable. At times, you may experience, now I'm coming to the concluding part of today's lecture. I think these are the brief points that I had to discuss. At times, you may come across clients who come up with very innovative thoughts and ideas to you. There is a friend of mine who once called me and said कि यार ये मोबाइल कंपनी के खिलाफ हम कोई केस कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते हैं. I said, का रे बाबा, क्यों? तो उसने जवाब दिया कि when I suppose he calls me and I have set a dial tone or a caller tune, then what happens is, now today in this corona pandemic we are all get used to listening to those अपने हाथ धोइए, हमें रोग से लड़ना है, रोगी से नहीं, and all that. But then if I set a caller tune, that is simply for the reason that someone, a friend of mine, my acquaintances, if they give me a call, they should get to hear something pleasant. Now this friend, now see what innovative thought people come up with. This friend of me asked me कि जब वो कॉलर ट्यून बजनी चाहिए तो वो तो इमीडिएटली शुरू नहीं होती है. शुरू क्या होता है कि अगर इस गाने को अपनी कॉलर ट्यून बनाना चाहते हैं तो अपने मोबाइल पे स्टार हैश और 9 दबाएं. मासिक शुल्क 15 रुपए, डाउनलोडिंग चार्जेस, मासिक शुल्क 30 रुपए, डाउनलोडिंग चार्जेस 15 रुपए. नाउ the ingenuity or the thoughtfulness of my friend was such that he said, if now I then also counted the whole caller tune, if you are to count, if a person doesn't lift the phone, it continues for almost 52 seconds. What my friend was trying to tell me कि उस 52 seconds में से 15 सेकंड तो यही बचता है कि इस गाने को अपनी कॉलर ट्यून अगर बनाना चाहते हैं तो अपने मोबाईल से स्टार हैश 9 दबाएं, मासिक शुल्क सो एंड सो. सो आपल्याला ह्या मोबाईल कंपन्यांच्या विरुद्ध काही करता नाही येणार का? आपण जनहित याचिका नाही करू शकत का? नाउ एज आय सेड, a very innovative thought, but then I told him that there is a separate forum, and that is the consumer district forum, where you can file a case that I am paying ₹30 monthly for that caller tune, and out of 52 seconds, 10 seconds are being utilized for that. There was a Maharaj who was working as a pujari in a mandir at a mutt, who asked me that, अरे बेटा वो 20 रुपए, now he was a Sanskrit scholar, वो 20 रुपए के नोट पे अलग अलग लैंग्वेजेस में आपको 20 रुपए, इन मराठी 20 रुपए आप अगर देखेंगे तो आपको देखने को मिलेगा एट द रियर साइड ऑफ द 20 रुपीज करेंसी नोट. सो व्हाट ही वाज टेलिंग मी दैट वहां पे जो संस्कृत लिखा गया है ना, विंशति रूपकाणि, दैट इज द रॉन्ग फॉर्म ऑफ संस्कृत. तो इसके बारे में हम कुछ कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते हैं? नाउ अगेन a Sanskrit scholar comes up with a thought. Now here I would wish to tell all the students of law that there are hundreds and thousands of such issues that you may come across. But then just because you feel the seriousness in the cause doesn't mean that the court will equally feel the cause. To give you an example, a petition was filed before the Supreme Court requesting the Supreme Court to direct the government to delete the word Sindh from the national anthem text. Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha. These are the words. And I'll tell you, the Supreme Court imposed heavy cost of some lakhs of rupees on the petitioner for having wasted the time of the court. Now, someone may empathize with this cause, and the argument by the petitioner put before the Supreme Court was कि साहब अभी तो सिंध पार्टीशन के बाद पाकिस्तान में चला गया है, अलग टेरिटरी बना है. So why do we need that word into our national anthem? Recently, a petition was moved before the Supreme Court where no costs were imposed, but that India should be uniformly known in all the texts of law as Bharat. Why do we need to carry this baggage of being known as India? There are two names in the very beginning of Article 1 of the Constitution, India, that is Bharat shall be Union of States. So at times, but in this petition, the court did not impose cost, it simply rejected the petition. What is public interest litigation? It is nothing else but when the courts have been very liberal, very kind. In a recent case at Aurangabad bench of Bombay High Court, where I have had the privilege to conduct the case in the suo motu cognizance taken by the Aurangabad bench, where the plight of Aurangabad Ajanta Road is such that the ambassador from Thailand to India had tweeted on his Twitter account about the poor condition of the road and how tourism is getting adversely affected. One correspondent of Sakar newspaper, Mr. Sanket Kulkarni from Aurangabad, transformed it into a news item, and the Aurangabad bench has taken cognizance of that. There are hundreds of such issues which you as students of law may come across around you if you keep your eyes wide open that need urgent attention of the court. Then it is your duty as aware citizens of this country to take up the call. And I tell you that you need not be a lawyer to conduct a case before the court also. Even if you are pursuing your law degree, you can come and make your submissions before the High Court. To conclude, I am reminded of the words of a Hindi poet, and he says, उगा सूर्य कैसा कहो मुक्ति का ये, उजाला करोड़ों घरों में न पहुंचा. We as a lawyers, if we are to utilize the movement of PIL for the well-being of the commoners, it is our duty to make it a point that ये उगा सूर्य मुक्ति का जो है, इसका उजाला करोड़ों घरों में पहुंचना चाहिए. I again express my gratitude and I'm thankful, grateful to Team Legal Expatiate for having considered me to deliver this first lecture. I would now leave the session open for discussion. If there are questions, you may pose them. If there are not, then we may conclude.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for explaining the notion of public interest litigation and expanding the journey, elaborating the journey right from the Bandhu Mukti Morcha till the Balwant Singh Chaupal's case. With your permission, there are few questions that, if you permit, I would be posing before you. Thank you, sir. So the very first question from one of our attendee is that whether public interest litigation can be filed through any of the writ petition which are available under 32 or 226, or it is available only in habeas corpus or mandamus.
No, it can be filed because the case which I referred to while concluding. Now, the query is precise. It says that whether it is only under the shelter of these two writs that a PIL can be filed. The answer is no. All of the other writs also can be invoked. To make it simple, though I said at the outset that, see, in service matters, there cannot be a PIL. In service matter, if you are challenging an appointment of somebody to a post, then the writ that you are to invoke is writ of quo warranto. Now, the answer to this query is this, that the Supreme Court has again, but then made an exception to the rule that in service matters, PIL cannot be filed. The Supreme Court, I recollect faintly, subject to correction, has said that, however, where the posts commanded are of some higher degree constitutional post, then there can be a PIL. So the answer, very precise, is that no, the PIL cannot be restricted to only habeas corpus and mandamus. The other writs also can be invoked, but yes, it can be invoked, because I'll just give you an example. It has now come to my mind. Olga Telis case. Olga Telis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation. Of all of the law students, make it a point to read this wonderful judgment. My senior advocate Santosh Bora, who was later elevated to the High Court as a judge, honorable judge of the High Court, often used to give a reference of this case. In that case, the judgment of Bombay High Court was challenged before the Supreme Court by a journalist, apart from the petitioners who were pavement dwellers at the Bombay High Court. Olga Telis was a private person. So in a way, Olga Telis was espousing a cause of somebody else. So certiorari can also be invoked then in a PIL. So it is not that PIL is restricted to only these two writs. All other writs can also be invoked.
Thank you, sir. So the next question from one of our attendee is that, as you have stated that public interest litigation is nowhere defined under the Constitution, then is there any law for the backing of the selection of public interest litigation? For the reason, there are many such incidences in which misuse of such public interest litigation has took place. So what are the checks to it, and whether these checks are being governed by any law in the country or
not? As I said, that the 2010 rules on the Bombay High Court website are available. But then the very query is this, that to refine what are the genuine cases and what are the cases which are meant to abuse the process of law, I think that it will solely depend on the discretion of the Honorable Court. The way the case is put across before the Honorable Judge, at times it also depends on the skills of advocacy by the lawyer, because courts, they look at every case with circumspection, and nothing wrong with that, because unscrupulous elements, just to, as I said in the course of our discussion, to settle their private scores. But there is no such law, because ultimately it is the facts of each and every case that determine whether the cause is genuine, or is it is being portrayed as genuine, being projected as genuine, but somebody has come to the court with some ulterior motive. There is no law that only cases in relation to health, only in cases in relation to roads will be considered as genuine PILs. It is nothing of that sort. There are cases pending at High Court talking of the pitiful condition of jails, the inmates in prisons. There is a case pending at High Court about the poor conditions of roads in the Aurangabad city. So there is no such 2+2 formula as to which cases are to be considered as genuine PILs and which are cases which are filed only for the purpose of abuse of law.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a question which demands your personal opinion. With your permission, can I ask the questions?
Yes.
Sir, do you think that the judgment delivered by the Kerala High Court yesterday, stating that only registered bodies can file a public interest litigation, doesn't it vitiate the object of the public interest litigation in the country?
I don't think so, because if at all, the cause is genuine. At times, see, what we do is, now here is something very significant, good that you have asked this question. We at times try to generalize things, like, because Kerala High Court has said that every court will say. Take an example that suppose 4 rustic ladies in a village, they are running this self-help group, Jala आपण मराठीत बचत गट म्हणतो, and they feel like espousing a cause. Now, of course, that self-help group, unless they are registered, they don't get permission. Suppose there is a Mahila Mandal who are doing nothing but praying and offering prayers and reciting bhajans in a temple. They come across something, and they say that Devi Shitla Mata Bhajani Mandal. Under that heading, they form their group and they write a letter. Now here, I'll tell you that if the cause in that letter is genuine, then irrespective of the fact that it is not registered, the court will consider. What I haven't read the judgment of Kerala High Court that is being referred to, but I have certainly read the news that was flashed on social media about that judgment. Yes, that the Kerala High Court has said so, But I will, with little experience that I have about the system, I'll tell you that it must have been that the petition itself must have been filed with some ulterior motive, and the court, by citing this reason, has dismissed the PIL. We, because we look at things from our own perspective, we tend to generalize things, and we believe that then if it is unregistered, then no case will be considered. I tell you that it depends on facts and circumstances of each and every case. Don't generalize.
Thank you, sir. So you being one of the best orator of the Indian constitutional law in our region, I would be taking some liberty and asking you my next question, that why didn't the maker of the constitution think about introducing the public interest litigation or relaxation of locus standi in the very constitution which we framed in the year of 1950?
So your question is, why did the makers of the constitution did not give such relaxations in spoken words in the constitution?
Indeed, sir.
Okay. See, the answer to that is very simple, and I'll just illustrate by making 2 points. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, when he was asked by Professor K.T. Shah as to why freedom of speech and expression also doesn't refer to freedom of press, his answer was precise. When we say freedom of speech and expression, it includes all forms and kinds of expression. Let that be a newspaper, let that be a performance of a dance. Now, these are examples that I am giving to you. But his answer was that freedom of speech and expression will also include freedom of press. Similar query was put to him by this very gentleman, Professor K.T. Shah, who was one of the revered members of the Constituent Assembly. And this again will give you the answer to your query also. Query that was put was that why don't we say somewhere precisely and specifically in the constitution that India is a secular country? And Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, with his erudition, responded by saying that from Article 25 to 28, we have freedom of religion, and that itself means that we are a secular country. Now, your answer lies here, that when Article 32 itself says that right to approach Supreme Court is guaranteed, the makers did not find it necessary to again make it specific, make it clear in these many words that all of these rules shall stand relaxed. That is your answer.
Thank you so much, sir. There are various questions asked by the attendees, but sir, all your answers and today's session has answered all the questions appropriately. So now, by ending the question answer series, I would like to further move and declare a few of the things. Legal Expatiate hereby declares its first online competition, the first research article writing competition with the theme Lockdown during COVID-19 pandemic. All the details of this competition would be uploaded on the page of Legal Expatiate on Facebook as well as on Instagram. All the attendees are hereby informed that day after tomorrow, that is 28th of June 2020 at 4:30 p.m, Advocate Uday Varunjikar sir, Advocate Bombay High Court, is going to be with us for our second webinar on the topic Impact of COVID-19 on Legal Education and Lawyers. It is our duty to express our gratitude towards every person because of whom we could dream about this day. We, from the bottom of our hearts, thank Advocate Chaitanya Dharurkar sir for graciously accepting our invitation and inaugurating the webinar series. Sir, we also apologize you for all the disturbances and inconvenience caused to you because of our phones and messages. I also thank all our attendees for your valuable presence. We hope you all are safe and stay healthy. Take care.
Thank you.